Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fifth episode of the Hipfire podcast. I'm your co host, Yasser, joined by my other co host, Seth. And do we have a banger of an episode for you guys today? Today, we'll be doing a deep dive on one of the most entertaining, crazy, and famous Call of Duty events of all time 2014 MLG Columbus Open, also known as the inaugural Advanced Warfare event. But before we even jump into the event, it's important to note where the Call of Duty scene was 5 years ago. The scene was coming off a horrendous year in terms of competitive Call of Duty with Ghosts. Ghosts was like, in school when you see that one student who just has a banging presentation that hits all the marks and everyone loves, and someone says, I'd hate to follow that? That's Ghosts. The game paled in comparison to Black Ops 2 with numerous glitches. The bomb, you couldn't even plant the bomb at times during S&D. Maps were not nearly as exciting. The game modes were simply not as competitive. I mean, Blitz, really? Players in the community alike were dying for a change, and that's where Advanced Warfare comes in. Advanced Warfare, or AW, was the first jetpack game, and initially, most loved it, and the advanced movement. We saw the return of fan favorites such as Hardpoint and CTF. Plus, we got another great game mode in Uplink. Just from this commercial, you can tell the hype was real.
What a beastly play!
I got skills, man.
Oh no! No!
He did it!
Oh my god!
He's gonna get it!
He's gonna get the kill!
Dear God, it was so close!
That's one. That's two. Can he get it?
Hey, there it is!
Oh, he got it! Oh my god!
Additionally, Roster Mania was unlike any other. As most are aware, the Complexity EG Dynasty split up after Ghosts, with everyone on the roster joining the Optic organization, with the exception of Aches, as one would expect. Optic Gaming brought over Crim6 and Formal, creating the super squad of the most talented players to ever play, and Nadeshot. Crim, who was seen as the enemy of the Green Wall for so long, finally teamed up with Scump, and Formal, who had broken into the scene in Ghosts and was sought after by many organizations, also joined the team. Now, Hastro, the team owner of Envious, had the opportunity to get Crim6 and Formal and Karma as well, but opted to stay loyal to longtime Envy members Nameless and JCap from Ghosts, uh, which wouldn't actually be the last of the poor roster moves for Envy this year, but that's a different story. Envy also added Clay, who had just been dropped by the Green Wall and was very hungry to prove himself as one of the best on the title. So we see Optic Gaming with their new roster, Envy, with the addition of Clay. Faze ended up being the new home for Captain Price, or Aches as we like to call him. They ended up picking Slasher as their fourth. So for those of you most know who Slasher is today. But back then, Slasher was known for being a Noble Esports. He had just finished second, which was his highest placement at the time at the last Ghost event, alongside Miyagi, Sender, and Chino. He was sort of an up and comer at the scene, this young gun that was very talented, and FaZe did a good job picking up as their fourth. Other rosters to look at, Denal Esports is one of the top teams. Towards the end of Ghosts, they ended up picking up Attach and replaced for Study. Attach also sort of broke up in that game, especially on Rise Nation. And the last team I want to talk about that's not on this graphic is Prophecy. Prophecy was Parasite's team. He teamed up with Ricky, Legal Fears. And what many didn't expect a lot out of that roster, but they definitely impressed come the first event. But we'll talk about that later. Seth, what do you think about these rosters?
So for me, I wasn't around as a fan from this transition to Ghost to Advanced Warfare. So looking back on it, it's really interesting to see where the teams were at the start of the year, based on what I know about what happened the rest of the year, and like who won champs and who ended up playing together towards the end of the year. So looking at the rosters, kind of from like this point in time, looking back, it's weird to see like Team Envy's team, just like a bunch of slow players who all have a certain way they want to play the game, and they're all going to be butting heads. Doesn't really seem to work, at least like from where I'm sitting now. Optic Gaming, like, well, obviously now, everyone knows how good that team ended up being, so that I would have said that they were one of the favorites for this event. Faze, if you add Slasher's name there, that looks really solid. And also TK, I think, like, that team with Looney, Gunjar, Theory, and Sharp, it surprises me now that team would outslay people because, all their careers kind of dipped towards the end and they all became either OBJ or coaches, or like that more cerebral players towards the end of their careers. So it's weird to think that they would outslay teams, but they did back then, which is interesting. And also, I think Denial and X Most Wanted, which ended up being Just Us, those two teams look really, really scary, considering that it's Advanced Warfare, because Advanced Warfare was super, super fast games, a fast game. But I don't think teams really knew that heading into the first event. Like, they weren't really expecting it to be as fast-paced as it was, which is why I think Denial and Just Us were done so well, is because those guys all have people that could slay on those rosters, especially back then. So those are my thoughts kind of looking back on it, just kind of why Team Envy, Optic, and Faze look scary. And then in terms of just like pure slaying power, Denial and X Most Wanted seem to have it from this early on stage in the year.
Yeah, for sure. As we look leading up to the first event, it was abundantly clear that it was Optic Gaming that were the favorites, and it really wasn't even close. Crazy thing is, they started late. They started late scrimming compared to other teams. As a result of Formal, he ended up competing at uh, Halo 2 anniversary event, I believe, with Maniac, which, of course, after he takes a break from competing, he just wins right away when he comes back on the Halo event. But as a result of that, Optic was late to the party in terms of scrimming, as I mentioned. But that didn't really even matter. They were still dominant when he got back. Were very dominant in scrims, in particularly, and as well as the tournaments, the weekend tournaments, like the 2Ks and 5Ks. Optic won both the 5K and 10K leading up to the event. Their respawn looked flawless, as you would expect. Even the game was so fast paced, and I don't think any Call of Duty's ever had this many engagements before, like Advanced Warfare. It really favored the slay heavy Optic Gaming. Grim, Scump, and Formal, they just looked so really dominant playing together. Didn't look like anyone could really gun them or touch them on the game. They had Nadeshot, who was sort of do-it-all player. He would rover around the hill and help secure that OBJ. They really were a team to be feared with, and you could tell that other teams were definitely scared of them. There were not many teams that could even compete with Optic. We saw maybe teams like Just Us in the 5Ks giving them a bit of trouble. You saw maybe Slack and Classic and Enable. They really stepped up. It was a 4-bal meta, 4 AR meta at the time, so it was very difficult for some teams to adjust to that. Thank God we didn't see that the rest of the year, because I don't think it'd be nearly as entertaining. But it was definitely something interesting to note. Not many teams could really compete with Optic during these online events or tournaments leading up to the event, and it really showed in the casters predictions, which Seth will break down for you now.
Yeah, so these are the casters predictions heading into the event. And it's pretty clear to see Optic's dominance. Outside of Puckett, everyone else had Optic winning it. And then Faze also high up there, except for on Puckett's side. And Envy's kind of, in the mix, but no one really predicted them to win. And as I said, that team just looked weird, so I'm not super surprised by that. Where I am a little surprised is with Denial, because you have Puckett having them win it, Benson in 8th, and then 3rd and 6th. It's kind of all over the place. I guess that makes sense because they didn't really know how well that team would kind of fuse on a land environment. And obviously they didn't place too well at the event, but they did run into a hungry Faze team in the loser bracket, which we'll get into later for them. And then one more team I wanted to note was Just Us. So the last podcast, I had a whole rant about onliners and this whole discussion about what the term means. And I think these guys kind of fit that term really well, because at the start of the year, they looked really good online, but people weren't sure how well they could play on LAN. And it's because of how fast and aggressive they were playing. And I think that lends itself. It's just a different kind of atmosphere on LAN. Even if you're still playing fast, it's different. Your callouts are more frantic because you have the crowd behind you. It kind of creates more of an added chaos. And if you're already a fast team, it can kind of drive you crazy. And I think that's maybe why the casters had a trouble placing Just Us. It was pretty inconsistent amongst them. But yeah, Optic dominant, and Faze. I think the thing with Faze was the question mark with Slasher, which we'll get into down the road, especially the grand final. Picking him up was obviously a good move for Faze, but at the time it must have been a little risky because he hadn't had play with that kind of caliber of teammates before. So to see Puckett's pick, I don't want to like bash Puckett too much. I think that's probably why he had Faze down there. Yeah, so with that out of the way, now let's jump into pool play. So Yas, why don't you kick that off?
Yeah, so as you see, the pools were determined based on these pro point events, the 5Ks and the 10Ks. Optic Gaming have the first seed. You look at Pool A, Prophecy, Optic Gaming, Team Caliber, and Noble Esports. I think pretty much most had Optic and TK coming out of this group, even Noble. I don't think many had Prophecy. Prophecy did do very well leading up to these 5K and 10 during these 5K and 10K events leading up to Columbus. But I think many expected that when it comes to LAN, a team like Team Caliber or even Noble Esports would take this spot, but that clearly isn't the case. Optic Gaming, as you can see, didn't even finish first in the group. That really had to do with their first matchup against TK. If you go back and watch, we see them on retreat hardpoint. Looney dropped 50 kills, and Sharp also had 40 kills for them to secure first map during that hardpoint. And then in the S&D on Solar S&D, and this still pisses me off. I remember watching this live and getting angry. Optic went up 4-0 and then proceeded to lose 6 straight rounds for TK to go up 2-0 in the series. Optic Gaming, this is important. Optic Gaming would end up falling back 2 maps, which would prove to be huge given that map count matters for winners bracket. They ended up losing in the Game 5 S&D. And this sort of sparked the conversation that we now know today of this theme of Optic starting slow on Fridays. We'd see this throughout the year during AW, but this event was where that was sort of birthed, this theme. And we even saw it against Prophecy. They ended up winning 3-1 in that series, but they still clearly they weren't as dominant as they were as they showed online. That is, and a lot of questions sparked. We saw Crim start to play better, but Scump wasn't quite there. And even against Noble Esports, those former Impact team with Killamere, Spacely, and Study, this is a team that they should blow out of the water. If that wasn't the case. It went to Mount 5, round 11, and fortunately for them, they clutched up.
That you cannot allow him to get that bomb down. You just can't. You need to put a stop to that. And you can see the ways actually gone weak, but the bomb has been planted. 2 plays have gone down though. It's going to be Spacey and Study in a 2 versus 4. Is there anyone on that bomb from Optic Gaming? That is going to be the question. And in fact, Scumpy's going to fight Ryan Spacely in a 1 versus 4. Can Spacey get to the bomb in time? That's the question. Yes. He gets it. He keeps his
No, the defuse went off.
The defuse went off.
The defuse.
Optic Gaming get it. Oh, that was a clutch play. Coming out from Optic Gaming in that round 11.
Their hopes of moving on to the winners bracket.
As we see there, Optic Gaming fortunately clutch up on that map 5. For them, that was everything. It makes winners bracket. And for a team like Team Caliber, I mean, you see every team 3-1. Had they not given or conceded those 2 maps to Optic, they more than likely go to winners bracket and Optics and losers. So just goes to show you how important maps in this series were. But looking on a Pool B, this one was pretty straightforward. Many expected Team Justice to come out on top, as they did, only dropping 2 maps. Optic Nation, although they were a bit of an interesting team to look at, I mean, Karma and TP, everyone knew what to expect of them. But Embos and Proofy, that was a bit iffy. We weren't sure if Proofy was going to perform at the same level in Ghosts, and if Embos would be able to keep up, or even just stay around that 1.0. They ended up coming out of that group, and we actually do have a nice clip of Enable getting a nice uplink throw.
Alive, 40 seconds left on the clock. Is anyone going to be able to fire this through? Ball is in Enable's
I love
hands.
this play from Enable. He's waiting for some team support here. He wants to go for the pass. He doesn't want to go for the individual play. But the problem is everyone has died. He's left all by himself. Now he has to go for that individual play. 28 seconds left. Can he get around in time? He's managing to juke absolutely everyone out. Goes for the long range shot. No. Oh!
It bounced,
He got it bounced in! Enable!
Oh my God,
That's
with 20
literally
seconds
from
left.
downtown.
Did it bounce?
It
Or did he
bounced.
flush that one through?
It bounced. The quaffle bounced
Oh
in.
my God, Enable the legend, able to score there.
Yeah, we see a bit of it there. A bit of an interesting toss there in uplink. This event really was almost less than a month, or just exactly a month after the game had come out. Games came out usually at the beginning of November. back then, and this event was towards the end of November, so teams didn't have a lot of time to create a roster, scrim with the roster, and then compete at this event. Especially in a new game mode like Uplink, a lot of teams, and you could see that in this event, weren't polished when it came to throwing the ball in. I don't think many even knew that you could bounce the ball in like that. But as I digress, we'll see that later on in some other clips. But Seth, why don't you break down Pool C and D for us?
Yeah, so Pool C, I think you had a pretty clear top two in this pool. It would have been very surprising to see Denial and Faze not make it out. And interesting note, Denial and Faze, the first series was a 3-0, and it was a dominant 3-0. I think the S&D might have been close, but outside of that, it was Denial just completely outslaying Faze in every way, and it's pretty much a stomping. And it's interesting because we'll see them play each other later on. So it was cool to see that matchup so early on in the event. And also, that was Faze losing 3 maps against Denial, which means they only lost one other map the rest of the time. And the only other map they lost was this insane round 11 clutch by none other than Swanee himself, the EU god. So I got a clip of that.
Sniper comes out, back to the BAL for Eggs. Slasher's got your bomb, and he's got a planet at B. Receiving shots immediately.
My.
Eggs
And
gets
they get
through,
it.
and he kills Slasher.
Swanee.
It's up to Swanee. 1v2. Swanee does it. If he gets his kill, that mistake by Eggs will absolutely cost him.
Oh, he just
and
destroys him.
it! Swanee! No!
And I said Apathy that would get 2 kills. I didn't expect him to get absolutely dismantled inside a window. And Vitality is able to tie up this series 1-1.
I love the caster just repeatedly saying no, no, no over and over again, because that's kind of how I felt during that clip. I had everything. It had an Eggs team kill. It was around 11, and it had an insane Swanee clutch, smoking Apathy at the end there. So nice job from Swanee. But overall, the pool, it's pretty clear that Denial and Faze were the top, and nothing surprising there. And then move on to Pool D, and this was another one of those pools where it just gets screwed because of the first game. So similarly to Pool A, Envy had a really slow start, just like Optic did. And this was in the form of Aware managing to beat Envy. And I have a clip from the first hardpoint of that series.
10, they've got the setup. We've talked about how this hill you can really dominate, and if you get a nice setup. Here's Merc, gets one. There's one down to his right as well. I believe a teammate just cleaned that up. Under 30 seconds to play. They should be able to. They just have to lock this down for the rain time. Aware's got to get it there as quickly as possible. He gets another one. You can see how difficult it's going to be for them to win a gunfight with him sitting there at the top of the steps.
Going to be difficult to break the hill, but they got to do it, and they got to do it fast. 16 seconds left on this hill. Does for momentarily go back into Aware, but here's Merc, the challenge. He will not be able to get it. Aware able to jump into it. 10 seconds in and hold it for at least 7 of these seconds. Going to be contested. 4 points separates them. Aware is going to go ahead.
I think they're going to get 206.
They got to win.
They win it by
They got the victory by 2.
Oh my, and you could hear them screaming over on the side. That was absolutely
Yes, that was Aware clutching the hard point there. And you can hear the casters talking about how hard that hill was to break. And they should go ahead and do it. Leave a couple seconds left to spare. And another note about that clip, that was the first map that I watched back of this tournament preparing for this podcast. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh, this is going to be a fun event to cover because it was already crazy from the get-go. That was the first match of the day on the Bravo stream. And Aware ended up taking that series in a Game 5, which is the same way TK beat Optic. And as you can see, both of them didn't make pool play. So again, it's the conversation of every map counting. And if Aware doesn't let Envy take those maps off, they could have still made it through to the winner's bracket. But Envy's struggles weren't over like just then, because they still had to beat, I think it was Strictly Business in an insane Game 5 round 11. But to get to that round 11, which Envy did end up clutching up, the round before that, JCAB made an insane clutch. I got a clip of that.
Now sitting at 10-8, the bomb is down in Middle Street. It is all up to JCap. Can the veteran make this happen? Knows there's one behind him, picks it up. Now a 1v1. Let's see if this final player for SB plays it smart. Yes, he is. He's just running away. But I do believe JCap spotted him. Is JCap going to be able to find him? 3 seconds left. This is the series right here. Can JCap get the kill? Yes, he
was able to get the kill.
Oh my God!
Unbelievable play from
God!
JCap in the final second.
Yeah, so JCAB makes the clutch in literally the final milliseconds of that round, gets that kill. They go into the round 11. They win that as well, and they qualify for pool play. So overall, looking at the pools, It wasn't a huge surprise seeing which teams came out. Maybe you would have people had TKO over Prophecy as the main kind of surprise, and Strictly Business and Aware that would have been close for that second spot. But the big surprise was Optic in second seed and Envy in the second seed, and then we'll see that play a role in how the winners bracket looks. So Yas, why don't you talk about the winners bracket for a
The
bit?
winners bracket, as a result of pool play, we saw a lot of very interesting matchups. To see Prophecy versus Optic Nation, which again we weren't too sure what to make of Prophecy just yet. It's very clear that they were a very strong S&D team, and Parasite or Haggy definitely led that. He was one of the better S&D players at this tournament, and he was one of the better players in general. He had a 1.1, I think, tournament or during the tournament, which is very impressive, especially given the players he was playing with. Ricky, who isn't really known for slaying. They got Legal and Fears, who they weren't the greatest players for sure, but they ended up taking Optic Nation down. I think you look at Optic Nation, they definitely didn't look like a very cohesive team. Embo was definitely lacking in the slaying, but I don't even think he was the issue on that team. They just didn't play together. Karma was just off slaying. T was trying to play the objective, and God knows what proof he was doing. So he ended up falling. It was a close match. They fall on Game 5 to Prophecy, but Prophecy ended up moving on. Look at Faze versus Strictly Business. I don't think many expected Strictly Business to even be in this position. Obviously, they were very unfortunate to have to play a team like Faze. They did do well. The team was Fizz. Twiz, Sinful, and John. John's obviously a name we all know today, but even back then, he wasn't playing at the top of his game necessarily in AW, or at least not at this event. Faze took them to a Game 5, but again, as we start to see a theme, Faze is clutching up in these Game 5s. They move on. We get to Denial versus Envy.
Just to quickly cut you off there for the Faze Strictly Business thing. As you mentioned, Faze was clutching up, and they obviously clutched up there, and that's a theme later on. But I just wanted to go back to pool play for a second because I completely forgot to show this clip, and it needs to stay in here. But it's a Doug round 11 ace, and we'll quickly play that clip and explain after.
That player is still back in that right corner, but Apathy is going to be the first blood. Slasher the second. Censor answers back. It's going to be a 2v3. Father and son, Aches and Censor. But Censor's left alone. He gets one more. Is he going to be able to clutch it? It's a 1v1. Colchan versus Censor.
I don't think you could have wanted anything else to end this game. Colchan, Censor one-on-one. Doug,
oh my God!
Is able to get the
Censor!
final kill as Censor is going to go huge for Faze.
He got all four. He got a round 11 ace. He was 5 and 6.
Yeah, you hear the casters, Mr. X and Maven, basically giggling, talking about Doug getting a round 11 ace in a 1v2 fashion. But yeah, just as Yas mentioned, these guys were clutch all tournament long, and against Strictly Business, there was no difference. And yeah, I think it's a talking point just because Doug obviously loves this event and isn't the best player in terms of skill, but we'll see him clutch later on in the event as well. And it's just nice to see Doug clutching in those moments and providing the extra spark for Faze. So yeah, sorry to cut you off there. Why don't you get into Denial?
Yeah, it's very important. I think we rip on Doug quite often, and the community does. This event, and there's a reason he loves to talk about it, as you mentioned. He did very well at this event, so good job on Doug for that clutch. But let's move on to the next winners bracket matchup we have, which is Denial versus Envy. It's one I highly recommend you go back and watch if you have the time. It's very close between Denial and Envy. I think many had Denial coming out. I definitely did. Envy, he definitely showed their cracks during pool play, and I wasn't sure if they would be able to clutch up at the end. But end up doing so, as you see, in a map 5 fashion. Denial was a very slay-heavy team and very strong. And they did have some impressive clips like this one from Attach.
Going down 2 rounds. Tash is going to go ahead and lay this bomb down at the A-bomb site. Little does he know, he's got Glacier waiting patiently right down here. And as soon as this bomb's going to get planted, here comes all of Envy to swarm around this site. Slowly pushing up. Attach is actually going to approach Clay, take him out. Got back on board with Attach. They know where he's at. He's got to check this bomb site, though. He's going to be chased from behind. He's got to make sure nobody's actually defusing. And he's going to continue to run around. JCap chasing, Merc chasing. They cannot find him.
Oh my, there's only 20 seconds, and he's able to get one. It's going to be Merc actually last 11. I don't think he's going to have time to try and get this kill, take care of it. Attach.
No time.
The Wizard
He's
gets
gonna find
it
him.
done. He gets the kill, but he's not going to be able to get there in time. Wow. The young gun, look at him. He's fired up.
Yeah, it's just interesting seeing that clip and seeing attached sort of gun clay like that, especially given what precedes this event or precedes in the future, where we see these two teams make arguably one of the worst trades of all time, but that's a whole nother conversation. But as I mentioned, Envy rather was the team to end up winning, and they did it in round 11 fashion. Thanks to Clay.
Getting this bomb down, planted at A. This player, replays, should be able to push out. If he does, JCap will be able to run away from that nade. He did get that call out potentially.
Grenade almost headbutted JCap as he pushed through.
Thought it was uplink for a second. 3v4 to defend this bomb. Patient play so far from Denial. He's going to get called out, though. JCap turning the corner. 3v2. Saints and Zuma. Last alive. It's going to be up to Zuma. Last 1v1 against Clayster.
All right, let me get Clay. You get the vision there on Zuma. We'll show
Zuma's
you.
going to be spotted.
Right now.
Clay's
The
going
shots
to
are
pick
coming
it up.
in.
And Team Envy
My God, able to clutch it.
Clayster! In your final kill cam, your final Clay cam is...
Yeah, nice clip from that. What did you think of that series, Seth?
So yeah, watch that series back from the start. I had Denial taking it, as he's mentioned, you had it as well. But yeah, Envy surprised me. They played really well. And I think, yeah, obviously we see them get on the graphic get popped by Optic later on. But I think this is a good moment of just like smart plays and veteran plays, kind of trumping a slaying team. Obviously in AW, I don't think it happened as much because, like Yas talked about, it was a super slay heavy game. But this series in particular, that's why Yas mentioned for you to go watch it back, because it was close and it was one of those series where the smart plays ended up turning up. And I think this is kind of like, it's just funny because, you know, Clay guns Zuma there in the 1v1 that ends up playing with him later, and then you have Attach and making the clutches against Clay. It's just a really good feel good series, regardless of what side you're on. Watching it back, it's a really fun series to watch, which moves us into the Optic Gaming versus Just Us series. And this series was closer than people expected it, although, like Yas mentioned earlier, go into this event, Just Us were the team that was giving Optic problems online because of how slay heavy they were. And I think, though, even looking back on it, I think Just Us needed to win that series in a game 4 and not let it go to a game 5 because, again, they're slay heavy, right? They're not going to do as well in search. But they actually started the search off pretty well until Nadeshot had something to say about it.
Right now, he is just all over the place, really making it hard for Justice to try and lock him down.
Yeah, Krim has that exo movement down. It's going to be all up to Nadeshot right there. What I think you saw Krim trying to do was, he was trying to get out of that.
Seen him, can he get the second kill? This will be a 1 versus 2. It's going to be Enable. Nade versus Enable, and Nadeshot gets the clutch. 3 rounds to 1.
Huge play from Nade right there, getting that.
Yeah, so Nade clutching up there, and they end up taking the map in the end and moving on. Great clutch from Nade. He was super weak. I don't even know how he finished Enable there, but a good clip. And it was, I would say, until the grand finals, and it was probably Optic's biggest test.
Yeah.
And they passed it. They ended up beating Just Us. Considering their slow start, it was good to see. So why don't you get into the next round of the winners bracket?
For sure. Just one last thing to note about those first round of matches. Every single one of them was a map 5. So you could tell it was going to be an entertaining tournament. Although right after that, the rest of them are all 3-0s. So kind of disappointing there. But talk about Prophecy versus Faze. I think we first need to discuss what happened the night prior to this matchup. This was the first matchup on Championship Sunday. Prior to that, we had a little bit of developments. Sir Patrick Price, or Aches, ended up hurting his thumb, as you can see, very gruesome picture there. He posted this on Twitter. Ended up supposedly pressing his hand into glass, and it broke.
Stupid.
Very stupid. Needed to get stitches right before Championship Sunday, and as a result, Faze didn't get a lot of time to scrim prior to their matchup against Prophecy, and as expected, they get 3-0'd very quickly and send Faze to that loser's bracket. It was very weird. Honestly, we didn't expect Prophecy to be top 3, and in this fashion, you could sort of say they kind of lucked out with the bracket they had. But Faze, it was time for them to regroup and see what they could do in a loser's run. But as we move into the next matchup, this one had a lot of eyes on it, as everyone had circled this matchup the minute the roster mania had ended. Optic versus Envy, E Classico. This one held a lot more weight given what had gone down. Obviously, Clay getting dropped from the green wall. And there's videos, I think, of him, sort of in tears with how upset he was, because Optic tried to drop him multiple times during the Ghost season for Formal. Unfortunately, they weren't able to get him in Ghost, but they have him now. And obviously, Formal, who had won so much with Envy during the end of Ghost, leaving, and almost threatened to drop JCap and Nameless until Hastro stepped in. So for this, there was a lot of beef. There was a lot of bad blood between these teams, and all play out in this matchup, and we even see it with the clutches in the S&D, as we'll see here from Krim.
In a 1 versus 3, but if anyone can do it, it is Krimbot.
Yeah, if anybody can do this, is Krim right now at 9-4. I mean, just playing phenomenal just all day long.
He's got a lot of time,
Yeah,
too.
he's got a bunch of time. I mean, he can just get one of these players and dash out of there pretty quick, Maven. He has a decent chance to clutch a 1v2. He's going to pick up 1 kill right there, and he's going to be able to get
he's
out.
challenging. He's
And
crazy.
He's going to challenge us. He's crazy.
He
He's going to be able to kill him.
Here, I'll get eyes on with JCap. Stay on with Krim.
Krim
is an absolute god.
Krim is a monster. Oh, dear.
Sweet Mary Martha.
Oh, man.
He has an ace in what, round 1?
He has
a
an ace in round
1v3.
A 1v3.
So any momentum Envy just had,
Yeah.
Krim said, sorry about your luck there, boys in blue.
Nah, Krim put
Yeah, so nice clip there from Krim. He was definitely feeling himself that event, and in that S&D, Optic ended up taking that to go 2-0 up. As I mentioned, Formal took this series very personally, and we actually have a clip to sort of demonstrate how good he was.
Point on their point, they're bottom base.
I'm stunning ball, Top the base, Oh my god, Joey! I'm at their base, Let's go, grab that. They're gonna be sandbags, throw it in again. I'm about to throw it in again. Move.
I'm bottom mid, I'm bottom mid.
Don't throw. I got him behind you, bottom mid. Another one, dirt. Sandbags. No, I didn't get it. I got him. Yeah, one at bottom. Oh my god! Jump it in. Oh my god! Play reset.
Bottom sandbags, one shot.
He's that ball.
Stun.
I'm watching it.
Stun.
Dead, let's go. No one behind me, Glass. I got him, let's go. One bottom mid. Just keep stunning.
What did Formal just do?
Matt Piper's not a human.
Oh
That was
my
unreal.
god!
Yeah, and we see it in that clip there. Formal just going off. He had a 1.65 that series. As I had mentioned, you could tell it really meant a lot to him. Really brought out the fire and showed why he's one of the best players in the game. And Envy didn't really have much of a chance. Fun fact, after the series, we saw Clay and Formal both throw up that 3-0 sign that Clay is sort of famous for. You could tell, little slide digs at Clay after the series, but Optic took that one, and it looked like they weren't going to lose any steam. As they ended up playing Prophecy Winners Finals, a rematch from pool play. As I mentioned, it looked like not a single team was ever going to stop Optic Gaming at this point. Prophecy, maybe you think they take the S&D, but unfortunately, they weren't unable to, and Optic see them in grand finals, as many had expected. But Seth, what happened in the losers bracket?
So just quickly before we get into losers bracket, I just want to say about that Formal clip, I love the passion. I really, really loved it. You don't hear it that much these days. We do less listen-ins. And when we do listen-ins, a lot of times it's in domination when it's a lot slower and people are just kind of focused, and we don't really get the screaming clips anymore. But somebody please piss off Formal. I don't care who it is. Somebody piss him off. I want to hear that again. I just want to hear him going off. I mean, that's so much passion, and just love to hear that from Formal, because he's relatively quiet guy usually and doesn't really get into heated moments too often. So to hear that was really refreshing. And yeah, just all I'm asking for, somebody piss him off. Maybe like send a mean tweet to him. I don't care. Piss him off. I want an angry Formal. But yeah, moving into the loser bracket. Unfortunately, we couldn't find clips of the Faze versus Denial match, which made me really sad, because that was the match that I definitely wanted to watch back, because like I said in pool play, it was a really close, it wasn't a close series in pool play. Denial smoked him. So to see Faze turn it around and beat Denial, keep this in mind. This is with Faze, this Aches like destroyed, busted up hand, and they still managed to beat Denial in Game 5. I wish I had odds of that series, but I don't. But looking at this as a whole, you know, TK, Envy, we'll talk about TK and their stats a little bit later, but they had some crazy performances. And Optic Nation, you know, a bit disappointing, but again, we didn't expect much from them. The Denial of Justice series is another one I wanted to watch back because in my eyes, outside of Optic, those two teams are like the two Slay. Like I guess TK was as well, but they seemed to be like some of the top Slay heavy teams. So to see Denial take that as a 3-0 was kind of surprising. What do you make of that loser bracket? Yes.
Yeah, the loser bracket, I think you just see TK go on the run, and I guess that's kind of what you could have expected given their pool play. They only really looked poor in one match. Every other match they looked very strong
That's
in.
true.
So definitely nice to see TK make that run. And on the other side, I expected Just Us, like you said, to sort of maybe put up a better fight against Denial, getting 3-0'd. Not what I expected from them. Denial, that Faze versus Denial matchup, like you mentioned, I would have loved to see the VODs back. It was on the beta stream. It went to round 11. We don't even get to see that. And I can't recall exactly what happened in that series. So maybe someone has a VOD out there, that'd be great to watch back. But great for Faze. They showed the composure after losing, and as you mentioned, with Aces busted up them, they were still getting the job done in that round. So very, very nice to see.
Yeah, with that said, let's move into the finals bracket. We had, obviously, from winners, OG destroying Prophecy. And then, again, no VODs for Faze TK, unfortunately. And then Faze Prophecy, there were VODs. But I just want to quickly say, the Prophecy, we couldn't really find that many good VODs because they just played a little bit slower and a little bit more boring. Not to try to be mean, but it's kind of true. But it was nice to see Prophecy finish third. Like we said, I was surprised. No one really had them there. And they may have gotten lucky with the bracket, but they had to beat good teams still. But yeah, Faze making the run with Aches' busted up thumb is kind of crazy. And I wish we saw that Faze TK series because based on TK's stats, like they had really, really impressive stats this event. So it would have been interesting to see how they lost. But yeah, that moves us into the grand finals, which I think Yas is going to do an in-depth breakdown of. So why don't you get that started?
This grand finals is one of my favorite, objectively. Obviously, to watch, it sucks as an Optic fan. I hated what happened. I watched it live. Disappointed. This is one of the most historic grand finals that Call of Duty's ever seen. I mean, looking at this matchup in particular, Faze versus Optic, by far the two biggest names in Call of Duty at that point. And they never faced off in a grand final before. During Black Ops 2, Faze weren't really that good. Optic had a couple good events. During Ghosts, Optic was kind of good at points, and then Faze got good, but Optic wasn't good. They never really were great at the same time. In addition, there was that extra layer of Aches versus the Green Wall. Aches always had a vendetta with the Green Wall. They always seemed to get under their skin, always seemed to beat them. And not only was he playing the Green Wall and Nadeshot and Scump, he was playing Crimsix, his former teammate, as well. And Aches, I can't remember the exact tweet, but he tweeted out about, looking forward to playing Crim in a grand final. And these guys, they won a lot together, so to finally have them facing off, everyone wanted to see it. We go to first map, which was Solar Hardpoint, which was one of Optic's strongest. And the map, and this will be a theme throughout the grand final, went back and forth. You saw Optic take a majority of the time on one P1 or P2, and then Faze would get another 60 on P3. And it all culminated at this top hard point where Optic just starts slaying out, and we have a clip of it right here.
By the time Faze get there, Optic Gaming will be back in the lead right now.
Scumpy, last man up here, 3 down for Optic. They're gonna spawn out, and Scumpy going so big. Now Optic is spawning here to support. That was an enormous two-piece.
That was so big. That's given Optic Gaming the spawns. Unfortunately, he's not able to find the third, but Optic Gaming do have control of the hill still. Crimsix is going to try and push up. There's going to be 2 for him. A massive play coming out from Optic Gaming. He turns around, gets one more. There's going to be more play. Crimsix. Surely not. Please no. Crimsix is playing out of his mind. 43 kills already, Puckett.
He is going nuts. Last time we checked in with him was a minute 30 ago. Since then, he's picked up 10 straight kills, 172, 153. Optic now extending their lead to 20 points.
This is unreal play from Optic on this hill. They are keeping the contestants high and they're picking up a lot of points, and because of that, they built the biggest lead we've seen in this game so far.
Yeah,
Last
just an
54
incredible
seconds
clip
now,
right
we'll get into
there.
the
A great clip by there by the Optic boys. Scump and Crim once again going off, showing how dominant they were, and particularly in hardpoint. Crim ended up dropping 49 kills in the first map for the win. Really unstoppable, that map. Aches also dropped 43, so he held his own even despite his thumb. Again, it was a solid map from Optic. They ended up taking the first map, and at this point, we all sort of said, okay, Optic's sort of getting in their rhythm again. Doesn't look like Faze can beat them in that respawn, but this next clip includes a very serious moment during Grand Finals, which we saw. Well, we'll see.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's happening.
Yeah, the dubstep is real.
These guys are awesome, to be honest. They
A very serious, very serious clip. No, shout out to
Yep.
the OGs of the Green Wall. It's just a funny clip that we found watching about the stream. It was kind of crazy to see how small scene was in a way, based on the viewership or the venue in particular. Not the viewership, but the venue, that is. It was just a fun clip we wanted to include. But going on to second map, it was Detroit S&D. And once again, back and forth. You see Optic take some rounds, Faze take some rounds. And we did see this it's not safe for work content. Seth, why don't you roll the clip?
Oh boy. Yeah, this is oh god, okay.
Optic's gonna pick up his second kill. That was on Slasher still.
You said to watch this, man. He's already 4-1, Ben.
I just had a feeling, man. You know, Crimsix, ever since he turned up
find
the
one.
power punch in Censor, the teammate and the shooting bodies. Crimsix, let him know, pal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so even back then, don't shoot bodies, kids. Don't.
Don't shoot bodies.
So for those of you who don't understand, in AW there was the one punch mechanic. That was an option if you were close enough, and we saw Crim do that there, and then shoot and do other Humpty Dumpty stuff to Censor's body. And Optic ended up losing that map rather, in a round 11 fashion, which was very crushing. Think about how different that series would have been had Optic won that. Would have been up 2-0. You think they win the next map? It was a Biolab. Uplink was the next map. This was the only map in the entire Grand Finals that wasn't even remotely close. It looked like FaZe played more as a complete of a team. Slasher had a very strong map as well. And we ended up seeing them come up with an 8-0 victory. Slasher dropped 34 kills. Aches had a 30 bomb of his own. And there was that doubt. This is up 2-0. Maybe Optic might have this series. I think Optic fans thought the same, and it was really Optic's court. They had to push it to map 5, and a lot of things. I know for myself and a lot of other fans, in the back of their mind, this is Aches. You know what Aches does? He always seems to crush the Green Wall's dreams, but this was a different roster. We kept saying this was a different team. But we ended up getting a fourth map, which was Retreat CTF. And trust me, if you've never watched Advanced Warfare before, you need to watch this map. This map is one of the greatest maps watching back of the Grand Finals. Super close as of pretty much every other map besides the uplink that we saw, or I just talked about. So just to break down sort of where the map was, with 2 minutes left, the score is tied 2-2. These had just scored to tie the match, but Optic got a full 4 down and countered very quickly. At this point of the match, the next flag could win the map, and the only player that could stop this next counter was Faze Censor Douglas. So Seth, roll the clip.
Oh, yep, here we go.
I got one. Let's go! Oh, they're on a fight. They're pulling. I got one. I'm one shot. I have to wee. I have to wee. I'm one shot. Yeah, I got him stunned. Fucking Top full. Lobby. Lobby. You guys can save this. I stun him. Dog, easy kill. One's on that wall. Flag just went in. 3 in the base. Fight.
Oh god.
Yeah, so in fairness to Censor, even if he did get that kill, no one was in a position to get return, so it really didn't matter. And fortunately for him, after that clip, we see Slasher clean out the Optic base. Censor picked them off spawn, allowing Fate to tie it and push it to an overtime. The way the old CTF rules used to work used to be by stopwatch. The first half would be 5 minutes, and you tried to cap within that 5 minutes, and depending how long you took, the team had that amount of time to either cap it faster or they'd lose. And interestingly enough, in the first half of OT, Optic only managed to cap the flag 4 minutes in. So they gave FaZe a lot of time to potentially win the map and series. I know some people back then, the strategy maybe was once it was past a certain amount of time, just let the half play out and not try to cap. Just what's the point? But Optic did, and as a result, we pushed it for a second overtime. Optic themselves were also very close to pulling the flag at the beginning of the second half of OT. 3 of Optic members in the FaZe base having killed most of FaZe. This time, Censor goes huge with a massive 2-piece to stop the push. I still see right here.
Yeah, it's a nice little redemption for Doug here.
Players down, Censor immediately off spawn. Can Optic Gaming just keep applying the pressure, try and go for another potential flagpole. Doesn't look like it's Scumpy. Desperately trying to get some kills from inside, and the kills are coming in for Optic Gaming. Nadeshot picks up one as well. They can flood the FaZe base, and they are going to do just that. And just right now, Foreman with the flag, he goes down. Nadeshot once again trying to pick it up. Not going to happen. FaZe, solid players down. Censor immediately off.
Yeah, Doug clutching up there was nice to see.
I could also hear the FaZe's quiet chants, which is another good thing about this event was teams were going back chanting. I think we had a lot of the FaZe guys as well chanting for them. I think Emperor, Rain, some of the other members were there at that event cheering on FaZe. So it's great to see that sort of back and forth. But back to the map, not too long after that clip, however, we see Ake sneak into Optic space, and well, you'll see for yourself what ends up happening.
Solid defense.
The Optic chance starting here in Columbus. The crowd getting behind the green wall. Scumpy on your screen right now is playing a bit of defense from the lobby. On the opposite end, you're going to see the flag pulled by Eggs. Scump versus Eggs here. Can Eggs get this out? Nice movement from Eggs. What a play. He's now to the middle. There is one last player from Optic in position to stop it. Krim going up against his former teammate has to play this perfect flag. And Eggs has got it.
That was a huge kill. How did he just do that? And Egg stands up, lets him know.
Yeah, so even though Scump had 39 kills that map, he whiffed some shots on Eggs there, and many surprise, FaZe beat Optic and pushed it to his second series. I was definitely surprised. I think many were very surprised that FaZe were able to take 2 respawns off Optic. They did not expect that in the grand finals. I mean, you look at the Series 1 KDs, and the ones that stand out to me, Scump had a .95. You just can't have that out of one of your top slayers. Krim had a 1.13. Had a 1.02, which was okay. And Nate had a .83, and many people would point, oh, well, Nate had a .83. Well, he clearly was the problem. While he didn't have a great series, I don't think he was the issue by any means. He usually dropped around a .8 to a .9. And even, you look at the FaZe side, Censor had a .88, so they weren't far off. X had a 1.02, so matching formal. Aptly had a 1.05, and then Slasher, new kid on the block, had a 1.09. Really proving himself to be a player that many should look out for, and shows why FaZe should have pick him up and good on him. Don't know why Noble dropped this guy. He was really the star of that first series, and I think Scump was really the key factor that they were missing in that first series. Optic was in particular to securing that first series win, but they ended up not taking it. But Seth, what did you think of that first series?
Yeah, so the first series was interesting because, like you mentioned, it was Slasher turning up, and out of all 8 people on the lobby, that's kind of weird considering the times. Considering he was a new kid on the block and a young kid, for him to have the outstanding performance is kind of crazy in a grand final of the first event of the year. It's just wild to think about. It's like you're picking up this young talented guy, and you expect the veterans to carry you when he gets to the grand finals. He does the work until the grand finals, and then usually veterans step in. I've seen Karma do that a million times in the past, where he goes off in the grand final. But no, this time it was Slasher, the young kid, doing it. So that was nice to see. We can get into the second series now, though, because this series also gets super interesting.
The second series is probably the most infamous series, the one that many of clips of that we see here today. But as I mentioned, Scump needed to step up, and he definitely did that in the first hardpoint. of the second series. He dropped 40 kills the first map. One thing I noticed watching this map back was Optic was very low to rotation. And, sometimes we see this later in the season. Optic could get away with it. They were so slay heavy. The way Advanced Warfare was, you could be able to rush back to the hill in no time. But with a team like Faze, and especially so early in the game, they did a better job of getting on the rotation. It made it life very difficult for Optic. But even with that, Optic were in the final hill. They had 2 players. Looked like they were about to close it out, but once again, Censor goes big.
3 members of Faze inside that room. He's going to get immediately shut down. Slashes on there. 47 seconds left. It's a 217 to 204 game. Optic Gaming do have control. It's going to be Scumpy on the hard point. He's going to need some help from his teammates, though he cannot do this by himself. Crim6 is going to lead the way in the slaying as he pushes out to try and control the spawns.
Crim not going to see anything on the
We're
back.
tied
Has
once
to get
again.
back in here. Gets one player reloading, second one coming in. Scumpy taking down. Nadeshot goes down. 221, 220. Faze tying it up with 20 seconds to go, and Censor is still staying alive. 3 players now from Faze pushing in here on Detroit. The final 15 seconds. Optic needs to get in on this final push. Look for the flank coming in, and Chris gonna get there, but Faze has already lost.
Yeah, huge clutch from Doug.
Doug, once again, going big, becoming a theme in this grand finals. So good on him. And that puts up Faze 1-0 in the second best of 5. And again, doubt's starting to creep into Optic's spine. But map 2 ends up being a Biolab best in D. And again, once again, like the other maps, very close. It goes back and forth. And it comes down to round 11, where both teams did a good job. Prior to the round 11, both teams really did a good job of keeping man advantage. We didn't see a lot of clutches from other teams because both were great at getting those trades, and having numbers really meant everything in this S&D in particular. A team like Optic, their bread and butter in S&D and AW was trading out, and Faze sort of similarly. But again, as I mentioned, this went round 11. It came down to 1v1, Aches versus Formal, but let's just see what ended up happening.
This is going to be tough for Faze. Can they make it 2 in a row on the attack?
I love that strategy they just did in that last round. It worked really well. Aches was playing very patient. He anticipated Crim's rush, but is Slash going to anticipate this? There's one. Can Slash find the second? It's going to be... Yes, he can!
Wow.
That was Nadeshot, Crim, but Formal and Scump reply. 2 versus 2 situation. Formal and Scumpy still left.
Oh my God.
Scumpy. He is going to get one. No! Apathy gets it! Formal, 1-on-2.
Apathy trying to make it twice. There's Formal. Formal versus Aches.
They're both going to be lining up.
Bomb is not down.
Formal, he's going to back off. Bomb is on the floor right now, and Formal's going to try and think about this. Aches has managed to pick up that bomb.
What do you do here if you're Formal?
I mean,
do you wait for the plant and then try and react to it, or do you go hunting?
Formal's very, very patient play. He's going to be thinking about this, but Aches is going to be chasing as well. Formal's done himself a little lap, but this is so clever by Aches. I mean, you see on the top left of your screen there, plays at the opposite side of the map at this point.
Time to clutch up for both players. Bomb down, they know where each other are. And we're gonna see Aches just try and sit back, force Formal to come to him.
Yeah, Formal, 34 seconds. He has no overclock available, but does have 2 grenades. Aches is going to be very, very close.
Did Formal spot him? Aches,
no, but Aches
first
did.
Aches
Aches has fired his weapon. Come on, we get the kill. No,
Formal
Aches
can't
gets
finish it. It's Aches.
Aches picks up the kill in a 1v1. That is huge. And that
Wow, that's the first time I saw that actually, and that was insane. My heart was just stopped watching that. God
Yeah, I
damn.
remember watching that and
Wow.
like my heart just sinking, knowing that Optic were down 2-0. Actually, that's how they felt. That's a very important 1v1. Aches, even with his thumb, still clutching up and tormenting the green wall once again. And damn, does that slasher kid have a future? He definitely has a bright future, let me tell you.
Yeah.
But again, as I mentioned, Optic are down 2-0 this time, and they were the ones that were going to need to push to a map 5 once more. And map 3 ended up being Ascend CTF. Again, this is a very close map. Optic, this is where they needed to show their composure, and they did. It was a back and forth map, 1-1 at half. towards the end, we see Formal get the winning cap, followed by a nice 3-piece by Nadeshot, pushing to that map 4.
Oh, sorry. Which clip was that?
The CTF with Nadeshot.
I don't think I had that clip actually. My bad.
That's right. It was a
Oh.
not really impressive clip. It was just nice to see. For those of you who don't know, SN CTF is usually Formal, and by the left alley, Nadeshot picked up all the kills off spawn in the mid, and we see Formal end up getting that 2-1. It was just a nice little clip to see how Optic. Okay, they had some life. They now had a map. But with that, we do have what is probably or arguably the most important map in the series. Not most important, but most remembered map in this series, which is the map 4 uplink, throwback uplink, which was Optic's best map by far at the beginning of the season. We're notorious for being strong on both sides of the map, which most teams weren't. I think at the beginning of the season, the good side on this map was very good. It was almost insane how many points you were able to score on the good side, with the exception of Optic being able to score on both sides. But this was one hell of a crazy game, and there was a lot of madness, and this first clip definitely demonstrates that.
Crim angle Censor now with the objective. They're going to push it to green. If anything gets a little rocky, look for him to toss this one out. Eggs though, 2. Slasher gets 1. Nadeshot answers back on
Sneaky
Slasher,
Beaver.
but Censor...
Oh my god, he's missed it! Censor just missed from point blank range! He has had an absolute shock of an apathy.
How do you miss that?
We showed some Censor some love, so it's only fair that we show some of his mishaps, and oh boy, I don't know how he missed that. To be fair, he ended up getting the 2-point score in the end, so I guess it did work out for him. Definitely a very funny clip from Censor. As I mentioned, as you could see in the score there, very, very close map. Faze were on the good side at that point in time, so that is one important thing to note. Optic ended up getting the good side. You see, like every other map, this is very close. With under a minute left, Faze held the lead, 10-9. Optic finally got ball control, but they were in their own spawn. Then we saw this happen.
Crim it within scoring distance. Can Optic?
Oh, but Eggs!
Uh-oh.
Oh, it got stuck. It got stuck on the wall. Eggs trying to get
can't
it off.
find it.
Can't get it.
Slasher and Apathy still in the hunt. Slasher still up, 4 down. Optic back on the push, and if they get a 2-point play, they will take the lead here.
But you could argue the 1-point play, much safer option at this point. Last 43 seconds. Formal desperately trying to get some support. He's actually passed that to Crim 6.
Yep.
And Crim, can he try and get it? Scump in support. This could be a 2-point play. Optic Gaming going to the lead.
30 seconds
left.
left.
30 seconds
2
left.
players on the Sentinel squad there, Ben.
It's going to be Eggs. Eggs on the satellite drone. Can he get away? No, he can't. All Optic Gaming need to do right now is waste the time, and they will force a game. Number 5, Scumpy's over there. Crim 6 is going to have to backtrack, though, because, again, it's going to be all over. Nadeshot has the drone. Just waste time.
Nadeshot going to try and toss it out. 10 more seconds. It's going to get reset. Double nades out for Scumpy. More grenades coming from Crim. Optic holding on. 3, 2, 1. Optic is going to force it. Game 5.
Oh my God! What a...
Wow, just insane.
That clip still gives me chills. I mean, it was such an important moment. I mean, you see the nice movement by Crim, everyone else slaying out. And that push was interesting because that was sort of an unconventional push. We saw Censor do it, but typically teams didn't really wrap the ball around to green and get many points that way. Usually it was by the right side. They got most of your points an uplink. In that case, it was obviously the opposite. But we see Optic clutch up there, push it to map 5, and this was like the hope you needed. It was going to be a map 5 S&D. Surely Optic can take this one. They'd gone to round 11 the 2 prior times. They clutch up on those. Maybe the series is different, but all that matters is this map 5 recovery S&D. And it was another banger. Like every other map, I feel like I'm repeating myself again, back and forth. And this was really the entire series. It was very close. Other than the uplink in the first series, every map was 1 CTF flag, 1 uplink point, 1 hill on hard point. S&D, not any different. Optic was up, I think, 4-3 at one point in this S&D. But as many of you may know, if you definitely follow Censor or watch his YouTube videos, ended up going down to round 10. And we ended up seeing this final clip.
Being Aches, not really up to much. Censor's gonna go for the challenge, not gonna get the kill.
Crim, bullets in his back, trying to stay alive. Censor's gonna get him.
Censor, that's a huge kill on Crim6. Time is ticking away, and Censor is just completely baiting out Optic Gaming here.
The crowd chanting Doug. Shots going down, no one dying. Censor backing up to some support.
That was a huge play, but Slasher has gone down. That's Nadeshot with the kill. 3 versus 3. Time is ticking. Oh, Censor! He's just gonna kill a bubble game by a second! Censor! Unbelievable play! That leaves Nadeshot 1 on 3. He's gonna get the kill though. 29 seconds left. Bomb down. Can he stay alive? Nadeshot, no! Faze win the championship! Censor, an unbelievable play. Being
Just pain. Just absolute pain. But yep, Faze end up taking MLG Columbus. X's 19th championship. Many claimed him to be the greatest player of all time, as he took sole possession of the most wins by any player. We see Slasher gets his first chip. He's won their second event ever, and it was a great time. You know, in that clip, man, Formal, man, oh, how did he die there? But great job by Censor. He goes big and gets in that win. Interesting note about that map 5. He's had 8 first bloods. Slash alone had 5 first bloods in that map and 10 kills. Showing once again, he's a star in the making. You know, look at the Series 2 KD. Slash had a 1.16 KD, the best in the lobby. He had a 1.35 in S&D. Censor had a 0.93, which is solid. X didn't even do that well. He had a 0.85, which is pretty low. Apathy picking up the slack with a 1.09. Look on the Optic side, Scump picked it up with a 1.05. Crim had a 1.06. Nadeshot picked it up with a 0.93, so we matched Censor. Where they were let down was Formal. Formal had a 0.83 and a 0.83 KD and a 0.75 in the S&Ds. The guy that you need to be slaying simply wasn't enough. Optic ended up falling. Faze, they had an unbelievable event, you know, great losers run. They won 4 map 5s that event, which is very impressive. You know, as I mentioned, Aches crowned the GOAT, and this was really the pinnacle of the COD scene. I think this grand finals had 205,000 viewers at its peak in the grand finals, which is, I mean, that's just more than any other event, I think, outside of Champs, of course, which is just crazy to think about. I mean, not to mention, the grand finals, I believe, was even delayed because Lizard Squad, I don't know if you remember who those are, they booted the team off the event. They booted the event offline for like a certain period of time. So just fun to see as the COD scene. Truly one of the greatest events. I'm so glad that I got to witness that. Not Faze winning, but just the event as a whole. But Seth, what did you take away from this?
Yeah, so obviously I started watching competitive COD in Black Ops 3, and I didn't even really know this event was that big. I knew the grand finals was big. People talked about it a lot. But watching the event back from the first matches of the VODs that we had available to all the way to the end, it was a wild ride, a lot of crazy clutches, and AW was so fast-paced. It was great to watch back, especially comparable to Ghost, because I really struggle to watch old Ghost clips back. Like, the game just looks awful. This one looked fun, and players are passionate, and I love how these rosters were so raw, and there was so much. The roster mania was so wild, creating so many storylines, and you had Faze taking it in the end, which was a surprise to most. And then obviously, you know, we see what happens at Champs later on that year, and it's just I think it is a really important tournament and event, which is why we decided to do this as our first run it back kind of segment, where we look at old events. And yeah, when Yats told me we should do this one, I went on to COD Gamepedia, looked at the rosters and who won it, and I was like, oh, this is going to be great. Could already tell. So yeah, great job by Faze. Doug really impressed me because these days he gets a lot of flack, and just a nice feel good moment for me, because I think it's just so much fun to watch some of these old events back where the players are so passionate and it was so much on the line, and it's I really enjoyed watching this tournament back. And in fact, we actually have some last segment here we're going to wrap up with is some kind of Easter egg, little fun little moments of certain players that played in this event that maybe didn't get the limelight but still played well. So first player is Hook the Nuke. So yeah, so why don't you talk a little bit about Hook in this game?
Yeah, so this prior to this event, Hugh really wasn't really known in the Call of Duty scene, from what I can remember. He sort of came out of nowhere. He was just a 15-year-old kid, because back during AW, at least at these events, besides champs, you were allowed to play if you were under 18. Hugh was this 15-year-old kid that sort of came out of nowhere. He was slaying pretty much everyone. He had the highest KD at this event. Fun fact. Granted, he obviously did not play in winner's bracket, so there's that to note. But he had a 1.21 across 11 maps that he did play. He showed a lot of potential as this young gun in the scene, and everyone took notice. The casters even took notice. All the players he actually got picked up as Faze's sub after this event, and the season that he had on, definitely probably a top 5 player. So it was just crazy to see what he was able to do. But what did you think of the event he had, Seth?
Yeah, so I watched all the sort of VODs I could find of Carnage, which is the team he was on at the time. And I was looking for clips because we wanted to highlight Hook. And there were so many to choose from because he went positive in every game mode. Like Yas said, had the highest KD. But it kind of reminded me a little bit. I know I'm not saying Awakening had the same kind of impact. I don't want to compare because it's online and whatever. But in terms of being consistent across different game modes, that's kind of what I saw in Awakening and was so impressive. And then watching this back now, watching a player do so well across all 3 game modes and like kind of out of nowhere was really cool to see. So the clip I'll show you is not the most impressive like gun skill wise. He just goes on a streak here, but the casters kind of break it down nicely as to why this kid was such a surprise.
We're seeing here, actually, Hugh able to break that hill with a nice 3-piece. He's on a 5 streak of his own. Now, the Sentinel squad, which is Carnage, still down by 70 seconds, a 6-kill streak now. Hugh, the 15-year-old prodigy, now on a 7 streak. He is just coming on fire right now.
Yeah, all I've heard about this guy is beast, beast, beast. He's one of those names, with every new title, you have a couple names that kind of pop up early on.
Wow.
Players that you didn't really hear too much about as he continues to shred at an 8 streak now. I think I'm starting to understand all the hype around him.
Yeah, you can see he's just holding down these areas, not missing shots. 9 streak, stop that, Hugh. You're going a little bit too
He finally gets shut down, and that hill for me is the one.
Yeah, so he goes on a 9 streak there, and you hear Maven and Jack talking about how every year you kind of hear these young guys come out and play really well and make a name for themselves. And for Hook to do it at the first event of the year on a team that wasn't that stacked and wasn't that good was awesome to see. And obviously, we know what happens with Hook in the future. I do it does make me a little sad watching that back because of the 18+ rule being implemented later on. I kind of wish Hook never left the scene because, I think when he joined back with Envy in World War II, it was no more advanced movement, and it was a different game. And I think there's just like a window there where I really wanted to see him play, with Temp and some of those guys in the advanced movement games. But it is what it is. Will we see advanced future games in the future? Maybe. But the next player we wanted to highlight, actually he's well known, but it's Slasher because. Personally, I just wanted to highlight the glow up. So obviously this is Slasher at the event. Interesting haircut, a little bit chub. He's not, just a little bit. And then we have him now on Optic. I mean, that's just a great little graphic to look at. Good on you, Slasher. But a little more on Slasher. He obviously is one of the smarter players in the game, and that also translates outside of the game as he is a college grad. Congratulations for him. I think he graduated back in IW before they, played pretty well throughout the rest of the year. But he had to kind of tackle a lot and deal with a lot while he was playing with school and everything. And to kind of see him at this event was really fun because he wasn't the Slasher we know now. And to see the caster surprised almost by how well he was doing. And there's even a clip I didn't show, but he had a 1v1 against John. He smokes John. I just kind of thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, nice to see the Slasher glow up and to see him still doing well, since the AW days. So yeah, so what do you make of Slasher's career?
Yeah, I mean, it was just such an interesting time. I remember watching, and all I really knew about this guy was that he placed second at the last Ghost event. He wasn't really known. He was known as one of the top up and coming players, but no one really knew what to make of him. I saw that he was on Faze, and I'm like, okay, he'll be good. But, I still expect Apathy and Aches to be the guys that are slaying out. I did not expect Slasher to be the one. He was. They didn't crown an MVP, but if they were, it'd be Slasher. It'd have to be him. He played incredibly well, especially in S&D. So for me to see that, I mean, it was really the first sign of, okay, this guy he's no joke. Like, he's definitely going to be one of the best players. I mean, it was funny to note that as the season went on, he didn't win another event after this event. Granted, not due to a lack of trying. He definitely played very well throughout the rest of the season. Just ran into the Optic Dynasty, so what can you do? It was just really fun to see to get that first sign of what he's capable of, and the glow up is just great to see as well.
Yeah, and the next player we're going to highlight is Looney. Like I mentioned, TK had some crazy statistics. Yeah, so what was Looney's KD?
I believe Looney had a KD of 1.18 through 23 maps.
Wow, that is very impressive.
Which is actually just to note, just the highest KD of any player that was in the winner's bracket.
Oh, that is important to note. Damn, this is interesting because as someone who's watched Looney since Black Ops 3, he was never really known as a Slayer, especially on the Rise teams he played on. He was always the captain and I imagine he was the in-game leader. I don't want to say too much on that, but he was probably the in-game leader, calling the shots, playing more cerebrally and slower. So to see him be such an impactful Slayer back in AW was kind of cool to watch. Obviously nowadays he's on the Toronto bench, but he actually streams the old CDL matches after they're done and provides really good insight on what took place. And I could definitely see either like an analyst role or coaching role down the road for him. But I do think he could still play. I don't think he's that bad where he's too much of a liability. I just think Toronto management's a mess right now. The team's a mess. And, honestly, maybe it's for the best that he's not playing. But I definitely think he could play again. But if not, I could see him sticking around the COD scene just for his, game knowledge as a whole. So that's going to wrap up Looney. And then moving on to the next person we chose to look at was actually Gotaga. So, obviously he's now one of the most prolific and prominent French streamers at the moment. He's really, really grown in popularity, exploded on Twitch, and it's just it's nice to see Vitality make it through the open bracket. Obviously that was Tommy, I think it was Riskin, Tommy, Gotaga, and Swanee, the only European team to make it into pools. And it's just a fun little Easter egg to see Gotaga competing at that event. And now we're going to move on to the coaches. So this was something I ended up seeing, which I thought was pretty funny as well. It was just a bunch of current coaches. Not surprising, after you retire, what do? You become a coach. But I want to specifically highlight these guys because the transition I could have seen even during AW. So the first one was with Replays and Crowder. So why don't you talk a little bit about Crowder and his kind of play style?
I mean, I think Replays being a coach doesn't really surprise anyone, given how he played as a player. Sort of very, as you like to call it, cerebral player, a very smart player. Mm-hmm. He wasn't necessarily backed out or fast-paced. He sort of thought at the game at a slower pace, and that sort of helped the teams that he played on. He was a part of the Denial team. At this event, he dropped a .99. He was sort of the OBJ, or known as the OBJ player at the time, which that team desperately needed, given how you guys had guys like Zuma and Saint and Attach who were flying at everyone else. So to see him transition to a coach, as we know today, wasn't really surprising. I mean, he ended up winning champs that year with Clay, Attach, and JCap. So, he definitely did have success, and he's definitely a talented player. Was a talented player and a great coach now too.
Yeah, so obviously now he coaches Atlanta Faze. Just thought I should mention that. But yeah, that's the team he coaches. Next coach is Censor, the current coach of the Chicago Huntsmen. Censor is an interesting player because as I've watched him throughout his career on E6 and other teams, I always felt like his slaying was lacking behind. And I didn't know enough about the teams he played on to know how smart of a player he was. I always just thought he didn't slay enough and should get dropped. Honestly, that was always my opinion. I was like, why is Censor not being dropped? And then I think now seeing him as on a coaching role and doing I would say a pretty good job as a coach. He's coaching the best hardpoint team in the game. And obviously on E6 last year, he placed top 4. I believe he was a coach for that team as well. So I think it's interesting that because he wasn't on one of the top teams, I always thought his slaying was a problem, but I didn't realize how smart a player he was. So nice to see that he was competing back in AW and has now translated to the coaching role pretty well. The next coach we have is Bevels. He has a really interesting kind of arc as a player because he played in AW, he kind of fell off the limelight and fell away for a bit. It was around the AM scene. World War II, he qualifies with Era for the Pro League with like Pharaoh and Blastful. Then he benches himself, becomes the coach, and then wins the champs that year as the coach of Envy. Or no, it's now EG with Ix. So kind of crazy arc for Bevels. And yeah, so why don't you talk a little bit about Bevels as a coach back in World War II?
He was a very smart coach, and particular S&D. I know he used to do some live streams where he'd break down the S&D and strats that he would use. One of the things he mentioned was when he first came on as a coach at Seattle, he created all these S&D strats for EG to use, and EG notably made the grand finals. And what he noted was that soon after the event, most of the top teams copied EG strats. So for champs, had to make further alterations to these strats in order to stay ahead of the game, which they did at World War II champs. Ended up winning it. So it was just showing one, his ability to adapt to situations as he did in World War II, and also knew most of other team strats pretty well. Just shows what he was capable of as a coach, and very impressive.
Yeah, and obviously now he's the coach of the Gorillas, and they are one of the best S&D teams in the game. They also have very good, talented S&D players on the team, which helps. But nice to see that his impact is still being felt. And then we have Ricky, also playing at this event. We talked about Ricky a bit earlier in this podcast and his smart play style, a bit slower play style. And obviously, he's also coach of the Gorillas, as you can see by the nice sweatshirt. Ricky's, again, one of those guys where the slaying would lag behind, but it was worth it because of the kind of the smart, intelligent plays he would bring. He was very clutch, and it's nice to see him translating into a coach as well because, again, like so far with these four guys, actually I'll bring the last one up right now. I might as well talk about him as well, which is Brian Saint. He's been playing, I feel like, forever, and now he's the coach of the Rocker. And I think these five that we have up here, it's like very not surprising that they ended up being coaches and are doing a pretty good job as coaches, because even back in AW, they were already being seen as the smarter players. They were already being seen as the slower, more methodical players. And so for them to translate into the coaching role doesn't really surprise me. And I'm wondering in the future if we'll see players continue to do that. I know a lot of people want Karma to coach. Personally, I think that his personality as a streamer, if he could do both, great. But I think his personality as a streamer might be something he focuses on more. Obviously, whatever he wants to do, he can do. Just my 2 cents on it. But players, we saw TP coach before he took it back to streaming. I think smarter players will always have a place as a coach. And one player I want to throw, whose name I want to throw in here, is veering a little bit off topic, but I'm going to do it anyways, is Illy. Because when everyone broke out in the scene, and the young guys, and Dashi and Simp, people kind of expected this year for Illy to be as good as them, but they kind of missed the point of Illy, which is a good part of Illy, which is that he fits these 5 people's playstyles. Like, Illy is a slower, more methodical, cerebral player. You can see it in Search, you can see it in Domination. He already has the mind of a veteran, which is why he was so sought after. And guys like Simp and Dashi learned from Illy in terms of game knowledge, but not necessarily in terms of skill. Illy's not one of the most skilled players, but he has that like game sense and knowledge, similar to the guys like this who are now coaches. So just cool to see from the young guy. But yeah, that'll wrap up our little Easter egg segment of cool, interesting players that played in this event. So yes, what are your last kind of thoughts on this event as a whole?
I mean, my last couple thoughts. This event, if you have the time, go back and watch it, especially that grand final. In my opinion, that grand final is probably top 5 of all time. I think it was just super close. All the storylines that went down during that series, it truly gave like a new breath of life to the Call of Duty scene at a point where everyone was down on Ghosts, as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. But you know, I had a lot of fun doing this. I know Seth had a lot of fun watching back those matches as well. So, guys, give us your thoughts. What did you think? What did we miss that you remember at that event? What did we catch you up on? And what events do you want us to cover in the future? Throwback events. Do you want us to cover? I know AW Champs is a very important one. Maybe we go Stage 1 Playoffs, Black Ops 3. But I'd love to hear your thoughts, criticism, and feedback. But with that, I believe that'll wrap up our 5th episode, unless you have anything else to say.
No, that's all. Yeah, just let us know what you want to see.
Take care.
Yep. Thank you.